All right, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we have a very special guest, Dr. Rachael Van Pelt. She is a researcher who left academia to motivate adults to take back their health span and their wealth span. I'm Reagan Dean. I'm a national marketing director with Juice Plus, and I am so excited for you guys to meet Rachael. For 24 years, she was very well funded by the National Institutes of Health to do scientific research on healthy aging and women's health. And most of these years were spent leading clinical trials on things like obesity, diabetes, sex hormones, all at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. Rachael had become a scientist to learn how to prevent diseases, but she felt really discouraged that our research findings were not being translated to the public. You know, the medical system is simply not set up to promote disease prevention, and it is in the business of disease management. So today she empowers people to take back their health so that they can maximize their quality of life, stay disease-free, and out of the medical system long-term. I love that. You know, soy is a really hotly debated topic these days. You know, is it good for you? Is it not good for you? You know, now we'll get to listen to Dr. Van Pelt as she demystifies soy and gives us useful information that we can all use to make informed decisions for the betterment of our health. So with that, Rachael, I'm handing it over to you.
Thank you so much, Reagan. That was such a lovely introduction. I am going to share my screen here so I can make sure I got the right. Oh, now we don't want that because that's the end of the talk. So as Reagan said, I'm a physiologist turned health span coach. And as an integrative physiologist, I always like to give people a little background as to what that even means, because a lot of people don't know what an integrative physiologist is. And that simply means that I was trained to think about how all of the systems of the human body, all the physiologic systems, integrate, or how they work together. So how the cardiovascular system works with the musculoskeletal system, and how that works with the circulatory system and the nervous system, digestive system, and so on. And I spent the last 24 years doing research on how these systems continue to function when, you know, we go through things like pregnancy and menopause, and when we get diabetes or have chronic disease such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And of course, I also spent a lot of time on how things like exercise and nutrition impact those systems. And one of the things that I studied nutritionally is soy. Actually did some early studies back in the late 90s, so more than 20 years ago, back when I was a wee postdoctoral fellow at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. And we did some of the early studies on soy where we were evaluating, for example, how soy compared with a milk protein, how that had an effect on things like bone and muscle with or without exercise. So we looked at the individual effects of those proteins as well as the combined effects with exercise on bone and muscle and cardiovascular risk factors. So that spurred some of my early interest in soy. And since then, there's been thousands of research studies on soy. And I love that because now, 20 years later, we have this wonderful body of knowledge to really inform how soy works and give us a better understanding of the health benefits, as well as whether there are potential risks associated with consuming soy. But before I get to the health benefits and potential risks, I wanted to quickly just review the types of foods, of course, that have soy. Where do we get our soy? You know, we can get it from simply eating soybeans and soy nuts, edamame, of course, and then there's lots of products that are made from soy, like tofu and tempeh and miso. Soy sauce is made from soy, as are things like soy milk and cheeses, and there's soy flour. And many of our soy-based or plant-based meat substitutes these days are soy-based. And of course, you get it from soy protein powders, which I'm really excited about one of the products that Juice Plus carries, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit later. But even if you're not vegetarian, you don't consume a lot of these kinds of foods, there's a lot of soy in our food supply, because the US produces probably the most soy of any country in the world, and yet we eat relatively little compared to most countries. And in fact, most of our soy that's produced in this country is exported to other countries, but it's also used to feed our food supply. So even if you're not a vegetarian, you eat meat, the meat that you eat consumes quite a bit of soy. So you can't avoid it completely in our food supply. But that's okay, because I think soy is a wonderful, unique food with a ton of health benefits. And not only is it a complete vegetable protein, that means it's like eating meat. You get a complete array of amino acids. And so it's a complete protein. It's full of wonderful complex carbohydrates, which makes it low glycemic. It's full of both soluble and insoluble fiber. It's got oligosaccharides in it, which is a prebiotic. It has lots of minerals. And then it also has lecithins and saponins, which are naturally occurring fatty substances, not to be confused with the preservatives that we see in other foods. This is actually a beneficial fatty substance that's found in most plant-based foods. And it has wonderful phytonutrients. The primary one that has been studied extensively is the isoflavones, genistein and diadzine. And those phytonutrients have incredible health benefits. In fact, now with 20 years worth of research, what we know is that there's just a lot of well-documented benefits for reducing the risk of many types of diseases, chronic diseases, the diseases that we suffer from across the age spectrum. Cardiovascular disease is one of the primary disease diseases that's been studied with regards to soy, and we know that there's a wealth of data to show reductions in cholesterol with soy consumption, reductions in blood pressure, reduced inflammation, improvements in our gut microbiome, and so forth. And all those things help to reduce risk of cardiovascular disease. And then the downstream effects of cardiovascular disease, stroke and heart disease, are also reduced with soy consumption. We even have a lot of good evidence now when we look at reviews and meta-analyses of studies over the past 20 years that soy is associated with reduced risks of cancer, many types of cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, endometrial cancer, breast cancer. It even has been associated with reduced kidney disease and improvements, slowed progression of type 2 diabetes through its effect on blood glucose. So just the things that I list here, it's not that we just have one or two scientific studies on any single one of these. Now we have lots and lots of studies, and the weight of the evidence shows benefit on all of these things when we consume soy in our diet. Now, there are potentially some risk factors that have been studied over the years that people get concerned about. One of them is the potential effect of soy on the thyroid. And this isn't I'm not talking about people with normal thyroid. This is in people with clinical thyroid disease who are taking thyroid hormone replacement therapies. There is some data to suggest that soy, and I'm talking high consumption of soy, can slow absorption of certain thyroid medications. So that's something that people who are on thyroid hormone replacement and are concerned about the amount of soy that they're eating might want to talk to their endocrinologist about. But most of us don't consume nearly enough soy for that even to be an issue. The other thing that we worried about, particularly early on, is the effect of soy in infant formulas. And that the concern there was that it would affect thyroid development. And what we found is that it's primarily just in those with iodine deficiency. And so most soy formulas now for babies are fortified with iodine. So that's become a non-issue. But those are things that have kind of crept up over the years as potential risks and something to keep in mind. But I think probably the biggest concern that people have around soy or had for many years is the potential estrogenic effects. Now we were excited about the potential beneficial effects of estrogen with regards to helping, for example, postmenopausal women with menopausal symptoms, hot flashes and so forth. And so we did a lot of studies hoping to see that the phytoestrogens in soy might be beneficial. And the reason for this is because soy, the isoflavone genistein that's found in soy is a plant-based estrogen, and it mimics estrogen, the estrogen that women's bodies produce. However, what we found over the years in studying the phytoestrogens found in soy is that it doesn't just mimic estradiol, and estrone, which women produce. It actually is a selective estrogen receptor modulator, or a SERM for short. And what that means is it's a smart estrogen. This phytoestrogen binds to some estrogen receptors and not others. It synergizes with certain estrogen receptors and it blocks other estrogen receptors. And there's been a lot of research over the years on the potential benefits of SERMs like tamoxifen for breast cancer. And so we actually like the fact that the phytoestrogen found in soy mimics a SERM, or that it's a smart phytoestrogen. That means our body can use it where it needs to, when it needs to, because the balance of estrogen receptors in our body are really different in tissues throughout the body. So that's a kind of a cool, more recent finding. So then the question is are those phytoestrogens soy risky or beneficial? And the wealth of data basically shows that there's little or no impact of the soy's estrogenic effects on things like reproduction, doesn't cause infertility in either men or women, doesn't affect kids' transition through puberty or menarche. But that also means it hasn't been a good alternative for postmenopausal women for relieving things like hot flashes or reducing osteoporosis. So the estrogenic effects in soy is actually pretty weak, but the effects that it does have are SERM-like, or selective estrogen receptor-like. And that's why it's been studied with regards to actually being a potential for reducing the risk of breast cancer. So in theory, if anything, it should reduce the risk of breast cancer. In fact, there's some studies that have showed that people who consume soy throughout life, so starting in childhood and consuming it throughout life, actually have lower incidence of breast cancer. And we have data to show that in breast cancer survivors, that it reduces recurrence and also improves prognosis. So the actual estrogen effects in soy are very weak, but the little effect that they have are SERM-like, like tamoxifen, which is used to treat breast cancer. And so we really don't worry about having any kind of increased risk of breast cancer with soy consumption. If anything, it should improve. I get a lot of questions about whether it's safe to then consume during pregnancy. And again, the wealth of data that we have suggests that there are no risks associated with consuming soy during pregnancy. And if anything, we have data to show that that in utero, that soy consumption actually helps fetal development, and babies who are exposed to soy during pregnancy have reduced incidence of breast cancer in their lifetime. So there's no known risks and potential benefit to the baby over a lifetime. And then it is beneficial. There we do have data to show benefit in women who have diabetes during pregnancy, or gestational diabetes, through effects on improving glucose control, reducing triglycerides, improving oxidative stress, and even less hospitalization for jaundice in babies born to women with gestational diabetes who are consuming soy. So lots of wonderful benefits for moms and their babies. So then people ask, well, how much soy do I need to eat per day to get these benefits that are being seen in the research? And right now, the US FDA recommendation is that people are consuming 25 grams a day. Now, the typical American consumes only about 1/10 of this. The basis for this recommendation is the amount of soy that's been shown to reduce cholesterol in those studies that look at cardiovascular risk. And so that's the basis for that recommendation. The average American consumes very little, doesn't get anywhere near that. And ideally, we're not just talking about soy, just straight soy, because soy, the amount of isoflavones varies considerably across soy products. And in fact, this is where it matters how the soy was treated and processed, because highly processed soy can lose as much as 80% of the isoflavones, and those are the phytonutrients that are having the most benefit to our physiology. So I don't recommend taking isolated isoflavones either, even though isoflavones are the benefit and they've been studied extensively. Most of the science suggests that we need the whole soy protein, because the protein along with the isoflavone, that phytoestrogen, works synergistically. So just taking a pill that's an isolated isoflavone is not going to do it for you. We actually need to eat soy. Now, all of the soys that I talked about, they all have a very high variability in the amount of soy that's in those foods. And probably the easiest way to get soy into our diet is through eating things like tofu and edamame and those kinds of things. If soy sauce is not going to do it for you. That doesn't have any isoflavones in it. And never mind all the salt. But yeah, there's certain foods that are going to be most beneficial to getting a lot of soy. One of the things that I love about our Juice Plus Complete product is that it has 13 grams of protein per serving. Now, all of that's not soy. If it was all soy, then that would get us to about half of our daily needs. But it's actually a proprietary blend of soy and rice and pea and chickpea. But it's one of the huge benefits is that it's a water washed, minimally processed soy, and it's non-GMO, because that's another problem that we see in soy products across the board, is that they're not necessarily very clean. They've been highly processed and stripped of all those natural phytonutrients. But fortunately we can get a good amount of soy from one serving of Complete. And then the other benefits of that is not only are we getting a lot of soy, but it's non-dairy, gluten-free, vegan, lots of wonderful fiber, and it's low glycemic. So just a really well-rounded nutritional lifeline that I think is part of, it's really important for Healthspan. So I started with talking about my journey as an integrative physiologist and how I care about Healthspan. I care about healthy aging, really from fetal programming through early childhood development, puberty, pregnancy, menopause, and well into geriatrics. And I see the complete products is just a wonderful way to get not only more protein. We need protein in our diet to preserve our muscle, to preserve our bone in old age, but also to develop that bone and muscle in early childhood. And so we need protein, and ideally a plant-based protein that's minimally processed, a soy that's water washed, that's going to give us all those wonderful phytonutrients that are going to fight disease. It's just a great way to really build our health early, but keep us healthy into old age. And it just rounds out the rest of the products. I think that the complete shakes and bars, along with the fruit and vegetable capsules and gummies, are just a great way for us to improve our health long term. So I think it's a great strategy, and encourage everybody to give it a try, because it's gonna improve your health long term. Reagan.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And I know a lot of people have questions about SOY, so thank you so much for helping us to realize that it's actually something that can benefit our health. So appreciate you and appreciate all of your research and all of your willingness to share with us. So thank you so very much.
Thanks so much, Reagan.